Single dad stands up for paralyzed poor girl accused of shoplifting, unaware her father is a millionaire. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. I saw you slip that medicine into your bag. The store manager's voice boomed across Harper's Market, his finger pointing at a young woman in a wheelchair. Don't think being in that chair means you can steal from me. Ethan Carter froze mid-reach for a loaf of bread, his 8-year-old daughter Lily's small hand tightening in his. The woman being accused sat perfectly still in her wheelchair, her blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. But it wasn't her appearance that caught Ethan's attention. It was the way she held herself, spine straight, chin raised even as the store manager towered over her. "Sir, I did not take anything," the woman said, her voice steady despite the small crowd beginning to gather. "You're welcome to check my bag, check the cameras, but I won't be spoken to this way." The security guard, an older man with tired eyes, shifted uncomfortably beside them. Other customers had stopped shopping, some pulling out their phones, others whispering among themselves. Ethan noticed how the woman's legs remained completely motionless in the wheelchair. Not a twitch, not a shift. The kind of stillness that spoke of permanent paralysis. "Dad, why is that man yelling at her?" Lily whispered, pressing closer to his worn jacket. Before Ethan could answer, Mr. Harper grabbed the woman's bag, dumping its contents onto the counter with unnecessary force. A leather wallet tumbled out, followed by tissues, a folded piece of paper, a small tablet, and a single car key fob. Nothing else. No medicine, no stolen goods. "Maybe you hid it somewhere else," Harper sneered, reaching toward the wheelchair side pocket. That's when Ethan moved. "That's enough." His voice cut through the store like a blade. He positioned himself between Harper and the woman, his calloused hands visible as he crossed his arms. "You've checked her bag. There's nothing there." Harper's face reddened further. "This isn't your business, Carter. Take your kid and finish your shopping." "It became my business when you started harassing a customer without proof," Ethan replied. He could feel Lily hiding behind his leg now, but he didn't move. Something about this moment felt important, like the kind of moment that defines who you are when no one's keeping score. The woman looked up at him, hazel eyes holding a mixture of surprise and something else. Relief, maybe. That someone had finally seen her as more than just the chair. "Are you okay, miss?" Ethan asked, turning slightly toward her while keeping Harper in his peripheral vision. "I'm Grace," she said, gathering her scattered belongings with deliberate calm, though Ethan could see her hands trembling slightly. "I'm fine, thank you. But I can handle this. Can you?" Harper spat. "Tony, call the police. I want her arrested for shoplifting." The security guard, Tony, scratched his gray beard nervously. "Mr. Harper, the cameras would show if she took something." "Want me to check the footage first?" "Don't bother. But she's not welcome here anymore." Harper's eyes narrowed at Grace. "Her kind." Ethan's jaw tightened. The words hung in the air like a challenge. People who what? Ethan's voice had dropped to a dangerous quiet. Behind him, he heard Lily zip her bag closed, the sound somehow louder than it should have been. "Dad," Lily tugged at his jacket. "Can we help her?" Sometimes children see the world more clearly than adults ever could. Ethan looked down at his daughter, her eyes so much like her mother's had been, full of that same fierce sense of right and wrong that had made him fall in love all those years ago. 3 years since they'd lost her. And here was Lily carrying that same light forward. "Yeah, sweetheart, we can help." He turned back to Harper. "You know what? We're done shopping here permanently." "Your loss," Harper muttered, but his bravado was cracking. Ethan bent down, helping Grace gather the last of her things. Lily, following her father's lead, picked up the tissues that had rolled under a display stand and handed them to Grace with a shy smile. "Thank you," Grace said softly, looking between them. "Both of you. It's nice to know there are still decent people in the world." "There's more of us than you'd think," Ethan replied. "Can we walk you to your car?" The November wind hit them hard as they exited the store, and Ethan instinctively moved to shield Grace from the worst of it. Her chair moved smoothly despite the uneven sidewalk, and he noticed how expertly she navigated around the cracks and bumps. "You really didn't have to do that," Grace said as they reached a modest sedan parked in the handicapped space. "Most people just look away." "Is that what you wanted us to do?" Ethan asked. She smiled, then really smiled, and something in her face transformed. No, I suppose not. Ethan watched as she transferred herself from the wheelchair to the driver's seat with practiced movements. No hesitation, no need for help. Her upper body was strong, compensating for what her legs could no longer do. The car had hand controls, he noticed, specially modified but otherwise unremarkable. I'm Ethan, by the way. Ethan Carter. This is my daughter, Lily. Hi, Lily said, waving enthusiastically. I like your car. It has special controls like in my video game. Grace laughed, a genuine warm sound. It does, doesn't it? Makes driving an adventure. We need to find a new grocery store anyway. Harper's prices were too high. Know any good places around here? There's Morton's 2 blocks east. The owner's actually decent. Plus, they have those car carts kids love. The race car ones. Lily's eyes lit up. Dad, can we go there instead? Sounds like a plan. He hesitated, then asked, Do you shop there often? Saturdays. Usually around this time, actually. Their eyes met and an understanding passed between them. Not a promise, not quite, but a possibility. Maybe we'll see you there sometime, Ethan said. Maybe you will. As they watched Grace drive away, Lily looked up at her father. Dad, why was that man so mean to her? Ethan knelt down to his daughter's level the same way he had 100 times before. When he'd had to explain why Mommy wasn't coming home from the hospital. When he'd had to tell her they couldn't afford the dance classes all her friends were taking. When the world seemed too big and too harsh for an 8-year-old to understand. Sometimes, sweetheart, people see differences and get scared or angry or both. But she wasn't different. She was just sitting in a chair with wheels instead of standing. Exactly. He kissed her forehead. You've got your mom's heart. You know that. The thing about grief is that it doesn't announce itself. It shows up in grocery stores and morning coffee. And in the way November wind sounds exactly like it did 3 years ago when Ethan had stood outside the hospital, unable to process what the doctor had just told him. Complications during routine surgery. 1 in 10,000 chance, nothing anyone could have done. But grief also teaches you things. It teaches you that life is shorter than you think. That kindness matters more than being right. That standing up for someone else can sometimes help you remember how to stand up for yourself. Over the next few weeks, Saturdays at Morton's became a new routine. And yes, Grace was there and always around the same time. Always alone. Always with that same quiet dignity that had first caught Ethan's attention. They started with nods of recognition, then small talk by the produce section, then longer conversations while Lily raced around in the car cart making engine noises that echoed through the aisles. That year, spring arrived slowly, like hope quietly returning to a life that had felt cold and tired for too long. Grace had become part of their routine now. It wasn't just Tuesday and Thursday tutoring anymore. It was Saturday grocery trips, Sunday park visits, and Wednesday dinners. Whenever Ethan wasn't stuck working late, Lily had started calling her My Grace, with the kind of innocent sweetness that made both adults smile and ache a little at the same time. Then, one Wednesday night, everything changed. Ethan had made his famous spaghetti, the same jarred sauce that he always improved with extra garlic and oregano, and Grace would always tease him, famous? Or infamous? Lily was bubbling with excitement, talking about how her reading scores had gone up, how Mrs. Peterson had put her in the advanced group, and how it was all thanks to Miss Grace because Miss Grace taught me that books aren't tests, they're friends. The doorbell rang. I'll get it, Lily yelled, already running before Ethan could stop her. She opened the door, and there was a man standing outside in an expensive suit, with silver hair and the same hazel eyes as Grace. Hello? He said in a calm, confident voice. I'm here to see my daughter. Grace's whole body tightened at once. Ethan instinctively moved closer to her. What are you doing here, Dad? She asked, her tone guarded. May I come in? Richard Miller asked quietly. I'm not here to give orders. I'm here to apologize. Grace and Ethan glanced at each other. Grace gave the smallest nod. Come in, Mr. Miller. Richard stepped into the apartment, and if he had any thoughts about the water stains on the ceiling or the noisy radiator, he didn't show them. His attention was only on his daughter. You look good, he said softly. You look happy. I am happy, Grace replied, chin lifted in that familiar way Ethan now recognized as her armor. Richard exhaled like he had been holding that breath for years. I was wrong, he said. I spent 5 years believing I was protecting you. making every decision for you, shielding you from every mistake because I couldn't protect you from that accident. But now I understand you didn't need protection. You needed respect. I should have seen you for who you were. Strong, independent, whole. Grace's eyes filled. What I needed was for you to see me, she said quietly. Not the chair. Not the disability, me. Richard nodded. I see you now. And yes, I'm sorry about the investigators too. They told me what your life here looks like. Your volunteer work at the reading center, your tutoring, the way these people have become your family. You built your own world without my interference, without my money. I'm proud of you. Grace's tears finally slipped. Ethan reached for her hand. She held his hand tightly. Is that Grace's daddy? Lily whispered. Yes, sweetheart. Is he sorry for being mean? Richard actually smiled. Very sorry, he said. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I was being foolish. I thought keeping someone safe was the same thing as keeping them happy. Lily looked at him with serious 8-year-old judgment and said, My dad says, when you love somebody, you help them be brave. You don't make them scared. Richard nodded. Your dad sounds like a very wise man. And just like that, over the smell of spaghetti and garlic, a new beginning started. Richard stayed. He sat and had dinner with Grace and Ethan. He listened, really listened, while Lily explained her butterfly science project in intense detail. He asked Ethan about his work, not with the tone of a man sizing someone up based on how much they make, but with real curiosity about how hard it is to keep a supply chain running. You have a beautiful family, Richard said quietly. We're not exactly a family, Ethan said. Richard shook his head gently. You love my daughter, and she loves you. I've been foolish about many things, but I'm not blind, Ethan met his eyes. I loved her before I knew anything about money. Richard smiled at that. And that's what matters most. Do you know how many people came after her after the accident? Not in spite of the wheelchair, because of it. They didn't see a person, they saw an opportunity. They saw weakness and a future inheritance. You didn't. You saw someone being treated unfairly and you stood up for her. People don't do that. You did. Time passed. Spring slid quietly into summer. Grace went back to teaching part-time at the community college. She used adaptive tools made by her father's company, but only after she personally tested them and gave feedback on how to make them better. She insisted on earning her own paycheck. She accepted finally that her father's love, even if flawed, had always been real. Then Harper's Market hit the local news. The owner was arrested for insurance fraud. He had been falsely accusing customers of shoplifting and then filing fake insurance claims for stolen goods. Security camera footage exposed the whole scam. The store shut down. In its place, a new community center opened, funded by an anonymous donor. Everyone knew who it was. Nobody said it out loud. Richard Miller. Then, on a warm September afternoon, everything shifted forever. Ethan had been planning it for weeks. He'd been saving, not for some flashy, expensive ring, but for something meaningful. He tracked down the family of the boy Grace had saved. He made sure they could be there. He made sure Lily would be there. He made sure Richard would be there. He made sure everything was right. Why are we here? Grace asked quietly, her voice tight. They were standing at the therapeutic riding arena, the same kind of barn setting where her entire life had changed. Someone wants to meet you, Ethan said gently. A little boy, about Lily's age, came running toward them, full of energy. Healthy, steady on his feet. Miss Grace? He asked shyly. My mom said you're the one who saved me. When the horse got scared and I was gonna fall, you made sure I didn't get hurt. Thank you. Grace's breath caught. The boy threw his arms around her, hugging her neck. Her eyes flooded. You're walking, she whispered. You're running. You're perfect. Because of you, the boy's mother said, tears streaming down her face. They told us what you risked to save him. We've wanted to thank you for 5 years. The boy ran off again to where Lily was already talking to him like they'd known each other forever. Ethan knelt beside Grace's chair. The afternoon light wrapped around them like gold. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring, simple gold, set with a single sapphire. Grace's birthstone. Grace Miller, he said, his voice steady but full. You've taught me that strength isn't about standing up. It's about facing every day with courage and dignity. You've shown Lily that independence doesn't mean doing everything alone. It means choosing who you let into your life. You've shown me that love doesn't see limits. It only sees possibilities, so I have to ask, will you choose us? Will you marry me? Will you make this our home? The pasta, the noisy radiator, all of it? Grace started crying and laughing at the same time. In the small crowd, Richard was standing with Lily, holding her hand. His own eyes were wet. His smile said everything without saying a word. I'm here. But the choice is yours. Yes, Grace said, loud, certain, shaking. Yes, for you, for Lily, for this messy, beautiful little life we're building. Yes to all of it, the crowd cheered. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger. Lily ran at them full speed and threw herself into both of them, yelling, We're a real family now. A real family. Grace held them and said, smiling through tears, We were already a family. Now it's just official. They got married at the new community center, the one that stood where Harper's Market used to be. Grace had quietly designed what that center would be, a literacy space, support groups for people with disabilities and after-school tutoring. Lily helped with the tutoring proudly, reading to younger kids with the same energy Grace had passed into her. The space was decorated with wildflowers from the park, where Grace and Ethan had their first real, honest conversation, paper butterflies made by Lily's class, and photos of their journey, photos Richard had quietly taken during his visits. Grace didn't hide her chair. She wore a custom dress, elegant but practical, flowing in all the right places, made so she could move easily. She rolled herself down the aisle. Lily was the flower girl, though most of the petals were already scattered everywhere before they even started. Thanks to Lily's enthusiasm, Ethan stood at the front in his one good suit. The same suit he'd worn to job interviews. The same suit he'd worn to Sarah's funeral. And now the same suit he wore at his wedding. Life has a way of stitching our biggest moments together with the same thread. His eyes never left Grace. Not the chair. Not the money. Not the difficulty. Just her. When it was his turn to speak, Ethan said, A year ago, I thought I was just standing up for a stranger in a store. I didn't know I was meeting the woman who would teach me that love isn't about saving someone, or being saved. Love is about choosing to stand beside someone, especially when the rest of the world thinks they already know what that person can or cannot do. You taught me that grief isn't the end of love. Grief is proof that love was real and that it can change shape and keep going. Grace, you didn't replace what I lost. You showed me I still had something left to give. Grace's vows were just as powerful. Ethan Carter, she said. You saw me before anyone told you my story, before you knew what my last name meant, before you knew anything about my situation. You saw me at the exact moment I was being accused and diminished. And you stood up for me, not because you pitied me, but because it was right. You and Lily have given me something more valuable than any fortune. A love that doesn't see limitations, only possibilities. You taught me that independence doesn't mean isolation, that asking for help isn't weakness, that sometimes the greatest strength in the world is letting someone else be strong for you. I choose you, today and always. You, Lily, and yes, me, wheels and all. And then Lily, completely unplanned in her tiny, serious voice. Miss Grace, Mom. Can I call you Mom now? You taught me that books are magic, and that being different isn't bad, it's just different. And Dad, you taught me to stand up for people and to be brave even when I'm scared. So I promise I'll always love both of you. I'll always help carry the groceries. And I'll read to the little kids the way Mom taught me. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Richard raised his glass. I spent years trying to protect my daughter from a world I thought would hurt her, he said. But Ethan taught me something important. Grace didn't need protection. She needed recognition. She needed a love that didn't shrink her but empowered her. She needed a partner who saw the chair as just the way she moved through the world, not as the definition of who she is. Ethan, you gave her that. And more than that, you gave me my daughter back. Not as I imagined her, but as she truly is. Strong, independent, brilliant, and unbelievably stubborn. Thankfully, she gets that from her mother. The whole room burst into laughter and the tension finally broke. Their first dance wasn't traditional. Grace spun her chair in slow circles. Ethan moved around her, matching her rhythm. Halfway through, Lily ran in and wrapped herself between them, of course. The room filled with a kind of joy that didn't care about circumstances. Months passed. Then Grace discovered a miracle. She was pregnant. The doctors had said it wasn't possible. Paralysis from the waist down usually meant certain doors were closed forever, but sometimes the body has its own plans, its own quiet miracles. "Ethan," she whispered one morning, hands shaking, holding a small plastic test. "I'm pregnant." What followed wasn't easy. It was complicated. There were specialists, risks, adaptations, fear. Richard demanded the best doctors, and this time Grace let him, because this wasn't about pride anymore. This was about the tiny life growing inside her. Ethan cut back on shifts. He chose presence over overtime. Lily promoted herself to big sister in training and practiced on every doll in the apartment. The community gathered around them, the same people who had witnessed the beginning now helping hold the next chapter. And when little Sarah Grace Carter was born, healthy, perfect, named partly for the grandmother she'd never meet, and partly for the mother who fought to bring her into the world, the first thing she saw was family. Not a traditional family, maybe, but a real one. A father with rough working hands and a gentle heart. A mother whose legs didn't work, but whose spirit absolutely flew. A sister who couldn't wait to read her books and teach her about butterflies. And a grandfather who had finally learned that love isn't about control, it's about letting go. Grace looked at Ethan and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me from the very beginning." "Not the chair, not the money, me," Ethan smiled. "I'll always see you." Outside the hospital window, the wind was blowing. The same kind of wind that had been whipping through Harper's Market. Back on the day a single dad stood up for a woman in a wheelchair, with no idea he was standing up for his own future. A love bigger than circumstance. A home built on choice, not convention. And in a small apartment with water stains on the ceiling and a radiator that clanged like an angry ghost, a family of 4, soon to be 5, was living a life worth more than anything money could ever buy. They had started out as strangers in a store. One person stood up for another, and they became a family, wheels and all.